After the death of Pope Francis, Vice President Vance of the United States, who was questioned by many people about what he had done, hurriedly began his visit to India with his wife and children. For Vance's political career, this visit is of great significance. On April 21st local time, Vance arrived in India for a 4-day official visit. On the day of his arrival in India, he had an in-depth meeting with Indian Prime Minister Modi, discussing important issues such as economy, trade, and geopolitics. What is the main purpose of Vance's visit to India this time? One of his core goals is to engage in trade negotiations with India and strive to reach a US-India trade agreement. The trade strategy of the United States towards India is of great significance, and both sides have shown a strong willingness to cooperate. In February of this year, during Indian Prime Minister Modi's visit to the United States, the leaders of the United States and India jointly announced the signing of the US-India 21st Century Agreement, ambitiously planning to increase bilateral trade from the current approximately $130 billion to $500 billion by 2030, and expand cooperation in key areas such as defense, energy, and technology. Vance's visit this time is aimed at promoting the implementation of the first phase of trade agreements within this framework, while striving to reach more new cooperation intentions, thereby adding important chips to the United States' advantageous position in reshaping the global trade pattern and enhancing its voice in trade negotiations with other countries. From an international geopolitical perspective, India has a unique geographical advantage in South Asia and holds significant political, economic, and military influence in the Indo-Pacific region. As a major power in South Asia, India has always been adept at skillfully maneuvering between major powers such as China, the United States, and Russia, using a diplomatic strategy of maneuvering to maximize its strategic interests. For the United States, in its geopolitical game with China, using India as a key strategic pivot to contain China's rapid development and gain competitive advantage in the Asia-Pacific region is a good choice. Since President Trump launched this round of tariff adjustments, India has faced a 26% reciprocal tariff and has chosen not to retaliate. Instead, they have attempted to use the terms of the non-reciprocal trade arrangement to seek an opportunity to delay the imposition of tariffs. India's reaction is undoubtedly showing goodwill towards the United States. At this time, President Trump's dispatch of Vance, who has a strong Indian background, to India is also a positive response to India's expression of goodwill, hoping that the two countries can have more room for cooperation. India has a huge population of over 1.4 billion, and its market size cannot be underestimated. In addition, India's rare earth reserves account for 11% of the world's total, and its semiconductor production capacity is yet to be developed. The factors combined make India an ideal partner for cooperation with the United States. Vance's visit to India this time aims to establish cooperation with India in multiple key areas, promote the transfer of industrial chains to India, gradually achieve the goal of replacing China, and carefully build India into an alternative supply chain node. In the field of semiconductor manufacturing and research and development, the United States has established compound semiconductor manufacturing plants in India, focusing on the production of gallium nitride and silicon carbide semiconductor materials for military platforms. The United States' intention is very clear, which is to support India in seizing China's market share in the semiconductor field. The same applies to the field of electronic consumer product outsourcing. Currently, India has taken on the production capacity of mobile phones and electronic devices from well-known companies such as Apple. According to relevant data, in March 2025, the amount of iPhones exported by Apple suppliers from India increased significantly from 110 billion rupees a year ago to 200 billion rupees, almost doubling. The scale and production capacity of Indian electronic equipment foundries are constantly expanding, and their position in the global electronic consumer product supply chain is becoming increasingly prominent. In the field of key minerals, the United States and India previously signed a memorandum of understanding to strengthen cooperation in the supply chain of key minerals. The agreement focuses on enhancing cooperation between the United States and India in key minerals such as cobalt, copper, lithium, nickel, and rare earths. It is of great strategic significance for the United States to enhance its control over scarce resources and create a supply chain of key mineral products that excludes China. In the field of IT services and software outsourcing, India has already formed a complete IT service outsourcing ecosystem, covering multiple aspects such as software development, technical support, data analysis, and artificial intelligence research and development. Bangalore, as the Silicon Valley of India, is a global delivery center that gathers top global companies such as IBM, Microsoft, and Google, and holds 55% of the global software outsourcing market share. The export value of IT services in India has skyrocketed from $64 billion in 2010 to $230 billion in 2023, with the US market accounting for over 60%. Recently, as the US-China tariff war rages on, Indian Minister of Commerce Goyal has publicly declared that this trade conflict is the most significant historical moment after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and India will take this opportunity to reshape the global supply chain and replace China as the new world factory. Driven by common interests, the top priority of Vance's visit is to fully promote the first phase of the trade agreement under the framework of the US-India 21st Century Agreement, in order to further upgrade the containment posture against China and seize the opportunity for the United States in its strategic game with China. Although there are common strategic interests between the United States and India, there are still many uncertainties about whether Vance's trip can truly promote cooperation between the two sides to take root. The main variable still lies in India's own strength. Firstly, India's manufacturing industry has inherent shortcomings. As early as 2014, the Modi government ambitiously launched the Make in India plan in an attempt to promote the development of the manufacturing industry. However, more than a decade has passed, but the proportion of manufacturing in India's GDP has declined instead of increasing, from 15% to 11.6%. The development of manufacturing industry is a process that requires long-term accumulation and gradual progress, and is not a one-time achievement. At present, India is facing a series of severe challenges in logistics, labor, and energy supply. The logistics cost in India is as high as 14% of GDP, with skilled labor accounting for only 23% and an industrial electricity gap of 15%. The backwardness of India's infrastructure, shortage of skilled workers, and unstable energy supply are multiple factors that, like layers of obstacles, seriously constrain the development process of India's manufacturing industry, making it difficult to achieve a qualitative leap in the short term. Secondly, India's industrial chain is highly dependent on China. At this stage, India's manufacturing industry does not yet have the strength to fully produce independently, making it difficult to shoulder the responsibility of being the world's factory. Taking Apple as an example, according to its 2024 supply chain directory, 44% of the 187 suppliers are from China, and 90% of the over 700 components for the iPhone rely on the Chinese supply chain. In this situation, the so-called Made in India is essentially more like an Indian assembly. To counter China's position in the global manufacturing industry by supporting India's manufacturing industry, there may still be a long way to go. However, in any case, Vance's visit to India is of great significance. It is not only an important opportunity for the United States and India to deepen their strategic partnership, but also a microcosm of the evolution of the global geopolitical and economic landscape. Both the United States and India have broad cooperation opportunities in areas such as supply chain restructuring and geopolitical games. However, the effectiveness of US-India cooperation will depend on whether both sides can balance their respective interests and how they cope with the complexity and indivisibility of the global supply chain. In this sense, The future direction of US-India interaction is not only related to the development of both countries, but will also profoundly affect the international order of the 21st century. This concludes the topic discussion for this issue. Welcome to subscribe and share my channel. See you next time.